Isabelle here, instructor at 22 Wing Nordbay. Today, as part of our series of tutorials, we will learn how to do pistol squats. Now, the pistol requires a lot of mobility in the hips and ankles, and not everyone may be physically ready to try the full pistol yet. Also, if you have any lower body injury, especially in the knees, I would not recommend that you try the full pistol. However, there are variations in this tutorial that you will be able to try despite having limitations. And I believe everyone can greatly benefit from working on the mobility drills that we will do as part of the warm-up. So work within your own abilities and have fun. For the warm-up, we'll start with some trunk rotations, about 10 of these total. So we'll just mobilize all the joints that will be involved in a pistol, starting with the spine. So after you've completed about 10 trunk rotations, you'll place your hands on your hips and you'll do 5 big hip circles in one direction. And then after that, 5 big hip circles in the other direction. So just keep your knees slightly bent, soft knees. You really want to get that full motion in our hip joint. After that, we'll do what we call a bow and bend. So you'll touch the floor, bending your knees if you need, and then place your hands on your low back and push your hips forward. Make sure you squeeze your glutes as you push your hips forward to avoid cracking your back. Just be gentle, go at your own pace. About 10 of these total. So you want to feel that stretch in the hamstrings as you bend forward, and feel the stretch in the front of your hips as you push your hips forward. After you've done 10, we'll do some soft rotations for the knees. So you're going to bend your knees, place your hands on your knees, and rotate 10 times in one direction, and then 10 times the other way. So keep your knees soft. It's a very small circle that you're making, just to mobilize the knee joint. After that, you can grab a wall or something to support you, and we'll do some leg swings. So for this one, you want to get some momentum. You want to feel that stretch in the back of your thigh as you kick forward. You don't want to excessively arch your back, but it doesn't matter that much. You just want to swing your legs as high as possible forward and as high as possible towards the back. 10 times each leg. After you've done the leg swings, we'll do what we call a Russian babymaker. I didn't come up with a name. So we'll come to a squat position with your hands either under your toes or on top of your feet. And you'll try to push your elbows inside your thighs, trying to spread the knees out as much as possible. So push the elbows in towards the inside of your thighs, keeping your heels on the ground. I'm going to show you from the side. And you'll do about 10 to 30-second hold in that position, 2 to 3 sets of that. So you really want to feel a deep stretch inside your groin. Next, we'll come to a kneeling position. So one leg forward and the other knee on the ground. You're going to shift your weight forward as much as you can, keeping your heel on the ground. So we want to mobilize the ankles in this one. And you're going to hold this stretch with your heel on the ground. So don't let your heel lift like I'm showing here. Just go as far as you can, maintaining that heel down. You're going to hold for 10 to 30 seconds. And again, performing 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 30 seconds hold for each leg. So take your time to complete those. Another option is to perform this stretch in a full squat position if you're able to maintain proper form and don't have any restrictions. So this time you can shift your weight over one knee to one side, keeping your heel on the ground and maintaining that pressure for 10 to 30 seconds, feeling that stretch in your ankle and then switching sides. So again, 2 to 3 sets per leg of 10 to 30 seconds hold. After you've done your ankle stretches, you're going to sit on the ground, grab one leg, hug your knee towards your chest, and then just do some soft, slow circles with your foot, about 2 to 3 circles in one direction and then 2 to 3 the other way. And then switch leg, and every time try to hug your knee as close to your chest as possible, so warming up those hips at the same time. Now we're going to stretch out the glutes, as it's going to be pretty difficult to do a pistol if your glutes are really tight. So you're going to do what we call a pigeon stretch. Different options for the pigeon stretch. The first option is to have your two knees in 90-degree angles, and your front knee aim to have your front shin as parallel as possible with the front of the mat. And you're trying to bring your chest over that front leg. So that's the first option. If you feel comfortable, you can also turn your back leg towards the ground and you can tuck that front heel in a bit more, but again, as much as you can, depending on your mobility, you may keep it tucked in, but you want to bring that front shin as parallel with the front of the mat as possible. It may not be perfectly parallel, and that's fine. You don't want to feel any pain in that position. You want to feel a deep stretch in your glutes. So we're going to hold it here for about 30 to 60 seconds. Shift your weight slightly side to side. Try to relax the upper body and try to let your hips sink towards the ground. After you've held for 30 to 60 seconds, you can go on the other side. So again, choose the option that's best for you. You can go with that 90-degree angle in your knees, keeping your front thigh on the ground and your back leg slightly angled out. Trying to bring your chest over your front leg and keeping your shin parallel with the front of your mat if you're choosing that option. If you want, you can also go with the second option, so tucking your heel in at first just to see how that feels. That should feel a little more intense, but again, try to bring that heel out so that your shin is parallel with the front of your mat or your carpet or whatever you're using. As much as your body allows, try to relax the upper body and let your hips sink towards the ground. So holding here for 30 to 60 seconds. All right, now last stretch. It's called a frog stretch. So you're going to take your legs as wide as you can, turning the feet out, so flexing your ankles. Bring the inside of your knees on the ground, and then you can either be on your hands or you can be on your elbows. You're going to shift your weight back as much as you can. And as you shift your hips towards the back, you're going to feel a deep stretch inside your groin. And you can come out of it, just relax a little, and then press your hips back again. So we'll do about 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 30 seconds hold in that position with your hips pushed back as much as possible. Now, before we start with the pistol squat progressions, I just have to give a quick note to consult the Get Active questionnaire. There'll be a link at the end of the tutorial. And also that you assume all risk of injury and that you agree to release the CFMWS from any claim related to your participation. All right, so that's the end of your warm-up. Now let's have some fun. In order to be able to do a full pistol squat, there are some prerequisites, but even if you cannot do these, you'll still be able to work on some of the progressions in the tutorial today. The first is to be able to complete a full body weight squat, so your heels remaining on the ground, And even if you need a wider stance, that's fine. And by full, I mean that the top of your thighs are at least parallel with the ground. So in the example here, I'm going lower than that. You don't need to go quite as low. But if the top of your thighs are not at least parallel with the ground, with your heels remaining on the ground, that means you don't have the necessary mobility. The second is an ankle mobility assessment. So using a box or a wall, you're going to bring one toe to the wall and then you're going to take a half step back. And then the other foot's going to go behind and you're going to try to bring that front knee so that it touches the wall or whatever support you're using. And your front heel needs to remain on the ground. So if the front heel is lifting, like I'm showing here, that means the ankle is not sufficiently mobile to be able to go into full pistol. So you need a lot of ankle mobility to do the full pistol squat. But as I said, if you're not quite there yet, there's other options. The last one is to assess both your hip mobility and your balance. So you're going to cross one leg on top of your knee joint, and then you're going to try to squat on that one leg. And the goal should be to bring your top leg at least parallel with the ground, being able to go down in a controlled way without losing your balance. So that tells you if your glutes are sufficiently mobile and if you have the necessary balance to try the full pistol squat. If you can perform the full squat with proper technique, heels on the ground, knees tracking with toes, you're going to start by doing 3 sets of 10 with your normal comfortable stance as a warm up. And then you're going to try to bring your feet closer in. Your knees are going to track forward a little more, less outward. And see if you can go as deep. Even if you cannot go as deep, that's fine. Just go as deep as you can, keeping those heels down. And then bring your feet closer in and try to do about 10 reps in each position. And maybe if you can, try to bring your feet together so they're touching each other and see if you're able to squat with your feet in contact with each other. And even if you cannot go quite as deep, that's fine. It's really important to just keep your heels on the ground for safe position. So that's okay. And if you can, go lower. If you cannot perform a full squat safely, you can use something to help you. Here I'm using a strap, just make sure it's safely attached. So let yourself pull back in the squat, go as low as you can as your body allows, keeping your heels on the ground, starting with a wider stance. And then if you can, without any pain, if you can make your stance more narrow to work on that range. And you can really use that strap or belt, whatever you're using, to help you back up. Now it's important to note you don't have to follow the progressions in the exact order I'm showing here, but I like to start working on the eccentric part of a movement. But if you would prefer to start with a concentric part, or if that's easier for you, you can also do that, and that's the next progression to follow. So I'll show the more advanced option first, and that's to use a higher object or platform. So you can step on a chair or a bench, whatever you can find. And the goal is to go as slowly as possible on the way down, and then you can step back and help yourself back up using some momentum. So it's okay to help yourself back up. You just want to focus on that downward portion of the movement. Every time, try to bring your foot forward a bit more. So the heel should be touching the floor first, and you want to control the movement and go as slowly as possible. If you're using a cushy chair, maybe even more challenging for balance. If you're a beginner or you have some restriction, you can use a lower platform. So here I'm using the first step of a staircase. You can also use a plastic bench, a plastic step bench. And again, same thing. I'm focusing on that downward portion, but if it's really low and you want to also mix in the concentric, so going back up right away, keeping your heel, touching your heel softly on the ground, and then standing back up, you can also work on the two phases of the movement. But if you prefer, you can just work on that downward phase. Now, specifically for the concentric phase of the movement, we will work on the box pistol. So this time you'll notice it's basically the opposite. The more advanced option is to use a lower platform, and the more beginner option is to use a higher platform. But it's the same principle and movement in both cases. So if you're more advanced, you can use either the second or the first step of a staircase. Here I'm showing the movement using the second step. It may take a few reps to get your balance. So you want to just sit on that bench or step that you're using, and then try to stand back up, making sure that your floating leg, that the heel of the floating leg is never touching the ground. So you want to be able to maintain your full range and balance without needing to put that floating leg on the ground. So flexing your quad as much as possible. And obviously the lower the bench that you're using or the lower the platform, the harder it's going to be. If you want to try the more beginner option, use a higher platform. So you can either use a chair, like I'm showing here. You can also use a box, whatever you can find. The next progression is what we call a toe pistol, or you could also call it a calf pistol. Only try this if you don't have any restrictions and you're pretty advanced in your pistol squat. So basically, you're going to place your toe on the ground behind your support leg and just the tip of your toe. So you don't want to put too much weight on that toe, just to help you have some feedback for your balance. And you're going to try to squat as low as you can. You're aiming to touch your butt to your heel. And if you want to try a slightly more difficult variation, you can cross your leg behind so that it's on your calf, just below the knee joint, so you have enough space to squat. You may not be able to go as low because the foot is in the way, but it gives you a bit more challenge in terms of the balance. And again, really important to maintain that heel on the ground and stay in control. Lastly, I want to show some mobility drills that you can do for the pistol depending on your level. So if you're more advanced and you don't have any restrictions and you're able to be in the bottom pistol position without any problem, even if you cannot do a full pistol yet, it's important that you're strong in that bottom position. And you're going to work on flexing that floating leg. So flexing your quad and your hip flexors to be able to keep that leg up. You can either support yourself on the platform or you can keep both hands off to focus on your balance as well. Beginner option, you can do what we call an assisted pistol. So it's basically the same drill we did at the beginning, but this time with only one leg. So using that strap or belt, whatever you can find, let yourself pull back into the pistol position, but only go as low as your body allows. So if that means 90-degree, like I'm showing here, that's completely fine. What's important is that you keep your support heel on the ground and you're able to do that with control and perform the same number of reps on each leg. I recommend you work on these drills 2 to 3 times per week and you'll get closer to a full pistol squat.